Hey everybody, it's Steph from Destination Exploration. This is part 2 of our Technology Thursday post on Python. If you're just joining us and you're a little confused as you get going, make sure you check out part 1 where we go through the first basics of Python and getting it on your computer and starting off strong. Part 2, right now we're going to be working on a number game that you'll be able to code and then play. Alright, so this is the number game, and it's basically a number guessing game where you or the player has to guess the number between a certain range. So I've gone ahead and coded it so that you can see where we're going as we build it. Right now we're in the Python shell, which means we can interact with it. It says, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 20. So we're gonna guess a number. I'm gonna guess 10, right in the middle. Press enter and it says, your guess is too high. We've got to guess lower. So let's try and cut that in half again. Let's try 5. Your number is too high. Oh, I gotta go even lower. So let's try 3. Still too high. Let's just go right to 1. Good job. You guessed my number in 4 tries. And that's the end of the game. So I guessed it. I completed it in 4 tries. Pretty simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to start from scratch and we're going to code that so that you can create that. You will be able to change the range, change the number of guesses people get. Maybe they only get 3 guesses. Maybe they get 15 guesses. It's up to you. Okay, let's dive right in. What I'm going to be working off of is an instruction sheet. So this instruction sheet is available to you. It's in the original blog post, and a link to that will be in the description below. So make sure that you are working alongside it so that you understand there, and it's a great way to double check and see if you are making any spelling mistakes or missing any punctuations or indents. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to open up idle. So remember, when we're working in Python, it does come with 2 applications, but we want to use idle. So let's open that up. Okay, again, we get this nice blank screen. Remember, when we're in the shell, we do have all this text up at the top here, and then our 3 arrows. This is where the program is going to end up running so that we can interact with it here. We're not going to build the program in the shell. We actually have to open up a new window. So to do that, we have to do Command-N or Control-N, or even just up at the top, we're going to go File, New File. And we want that blank, untitled window right there that we can type in. I didn't mention this in the last video, but in order to help us kind of understand where we are within coding and within our program here, we're going to use a very common thing called comments. To make a comment, all you have to do is use the hashtag and then just type after that, and everything that you see will be in red, and it won't have any effect on the code when you run it. It's just there to help the user or the coder to understand where they're going. So we're going to give it a title. So this is going to be the Python number game. Excuse my spelling and my typing as I go through this. When we're in this, again, we can add random spaces and enter new lines throughout it. It's not going to cause any issues there. But the first thing that we have to start is we have to import the random library. So we're going to go import, and note that it turns orange. That's a great sign. A space, and then we're going to type in random. If I were to get rid of that and just write import random without the space, I don't get the orange. So you're going to want to make sure that there is a space there and that both are the correct color. So that's it. That's step 1. We're golden. Now we're going to create a variable that is going to be used to track the number of guesses that your player has taken. So we're going to call that num guess. So num of guesses. Okay, and so when we start the game, of course, nobody's had any guesses, so it starts off as 0. Okay, so this is the number of guesses that your player has had, and it always starts off at 0. So we're going to leave that. Now, the random number that they're guessing, we've got to create that. Now, instead of the coder having to go in every single time and pick and write a new number, that's what this library, this random library, is going to be able to do for us. It's going to take a random number within a certain range of numbers. That's going to be the number that you're guessing. Okay, so the number, we're going to call the variable number. We're going to press equal. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the random library. So we have to write random. We have to add a period with no spaces. And then we're going to, so within that random library, we're going to do something else, and that is going to be a random integer. So for that, we're going to do the function which is randint. So a random integer. We're going to open a bracket, and this is going to be the range of numbers that it's looking for. So to very simply start off, we're going to do between 1 and 20 and close the bracket. You can change this to like 1 in a million if you really want to, but it's going to be very hard for your user to guess that number unless you give them unlimited amounts of tries. So we're going to start off easy. We're going to show a random integer, and an integer just means a number that has a value that Python is able to add or subtract or basically manipulate. Okay, so a random integer between 1 and 20. Step 2, done. Now we have to give the player some idea of what's going on. So at this point, if I were to run my program, nothing would happen on the screen. You wouldn't be able to do anything. So we have to print something out so that we can communicate to the person. So we're going to do print. Remember, it's going to turn purple. Open our bracket. I have to create my string, and that's what's going to print out to the user. So I'm going to use double quotations. This is just what my preferred quotation mark is, so even though the instructions just have a single one, they both work. So we've got a quotation. I am thinking of a number between 1 and 20. So remember, we've got to close our quotations and close our bracket. So everything that's going to print out has to be green, so if your whole text here is not green, or if your last bracket is green, you want to make sure that it is still black to close it off there, okay? So print, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 20. Now, again, if you've chosen a different range up here, a random integer between 1 and 50, then we'd put 1 and 50 here so that the player actually has a fair chance of guessing your number. We've done step 3. Let's go into step 4. So we're going to create a loop or conditions that will allow the game to adapt to what's happening with the player. Okay, so we're going to use a while loop. So a while loop will turn orange. We want to have a space, and then we're going to do while the number of guesses is less than a certain number, all of the things below it are going to happen. So we're going to give our player 6 chances to guess the number. So while our number of guesses, so num guess, so that's the same as this up here. So the number of guesses right at the beginning is 0. Space is less than, so we're using our arrows, is less than 6. The following is true, and it will keep going. We need to make sure that we have a semicolon when we're using a loop, because it allows us to jump down and see what's happening next to it. So that's always something that people miss, so just make sure you've got that. When you press enter, you're gonna notice that we've been indented by 1, okay? This is important when we're using loops. This indent shows us what that loop contains, and we wanna make sure that that indent stays there. So you can press backspace so that you're working on that same first line, but we do want that tabbed or that indent. So just press the tab key on your keyboard there, okay? Now we have to talk to the user because they have to make a guess. So we're gonna make a variable and we're gonna call it guess. Their guess is going to be equal to the input. So an input is gonna turn purple, which means that it's gonna interact with the user. We're gonna open the bracket, we're gonna give them a prompt, and we're gonna go guess a number. So now if I were to close my quotations right here and add in my bracket, when I print this out, when I type in my number, it's going to be directly beside the semicolon. We want to give it a space just because it's a little bit easier to see. So make sure that you're adding those spaces in as well when we're talking about our string, because that's actually a value as well. So the variable guess is going to be the number that the person is prompted to enter. Except when they enter it, it's actually going to be a string. So a string, remember, is just this basic top layer, just kind of like a stamp. It doesn't have any value to it. So we have to turn it into an integer because that's what we're working with. So we're going to turn the guess into an integer. So the guess equals the integer of what that person said, what the guess was before. Okay, so that's just turning it into something that Python can use, a number that it can use. That was step number 5. We're going to go on to step number 6. All right, so once they've guessed a number, it means that they've had a turn. The number of guesses is no longer 0. So we have to add a value to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the number of guesses is now going to equal the original number of guesses beforehand plus 1. So we've just taken 0 plus 1. When we go through the loop again, the new number of guesses will be 1 plus 1, which is 2. Okay, so it'll keep going up and up until it reaches 6. Okay, so that's what we've done there. And now we have to say, okay, I can keep guessing and guessing and guessing, but do I get any hints? How do I know when I get it right? So we have to have an if statement or a condition so that the player knows what's going on. So we're going to create an if statement so that if, and again it's going to turn orange, if the guess is less than the number, colon, something else has to happen. So you'll notice that the if is still in that first indent. Because I've made a new statement, because it's orange, and I press enter again, I have another indent, and I want to keep that indent there. So if the guess is less than the number, we're going to do print. We're going to tell the user that your guess is too low. Okay, pretty simple. So do you think that you could try to get it so that we can tell the user if their guess is too high? We're going to do the same thing. We want to make sure that as we're going through, these if statements are going to happen all underneath this big while loop umbrella. So when I press enter here, you'll notice that I'm on that second indent. I want to press backspace so that the two ifs line up. So if the guess is greater than the number, we're going to print your guess is too high. All right, and then again, we're going to use backspace and get back to that indent. And so we have to tell them we've got too low, too high. We've got to make sure that they know when they win. So if the guess is equal to the number, we've used equal signs before, except these were just to define a variable. In Python, if we want it to check between two integers to make sure that they're same, we have to use two equal signs. So it's not a typo. You do need to make sure that you have two there, not just one. So if the guess equals the number, then we're gonna tell them congratulations. All right. So if the user then guesses the exact number, to tell them how many guesses or how many tries they've had, we have to turn this number of guesses, which is still a value that's going up, it's an integer, so it's a number. We have to turn it into a string so that we can add them together so that it comes out as one sentence, okay? So what we have to do, just like we turned the guess, so a string, into an integer, we have to do the opposite. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in here and we're gonna turn the number of guesses into a string. And we're just gonna do that. So it's pretty simple. We're just turning it into something that we can use in a print statement. So we're going to print good job, you guessed my number in, and because we're adding strings together, we're going to close this, making sure that we add in the space so that our numbers aren't just back to back. We're going to add together the number of guesses, which we've just created into a string, and then we're going to add it again to more text tries. We'll add some punctuation there, so okay. So this is just showing you that right now we've got good job, you've guessed the number in this many tries. And what we have to do now is we have to go down and we have to end this loop. So we're just going to type in break and it should turn orange. So that means that this whole section right here is finished. That'll be the end of the game, and you saw that that's kind of like the goal. All right, so the break will end the game. Okay, so we've all got that one person that isn't great at guessing, and they may take too many tries to figure out what our number is, especially if we've given a really big range. Okay, so if their number of guesses is greater than 6, something's got to happen. So right now, if the number of guesses is less than 6, it goes through all of this. Okay, and if it gets to the point where their number of guesses is greater, we have to check something. So that means if their guess after 6 does not equal our number, we have to tell them that they've lost the game. So to do that, the does not equal code in Python is an exclamation mark and an equal sign. So it's if the guess does not equal the number, we have to first turn the number into a string so that we can write it. So just like we turned the number of guesses into the string, we're going to do the same thing down here. We're going to turn the number into a string. So this is just the number, the random number that your computer has created. And then we're going to print out, nope, you ran out of attempts. I was thinking of the number. Remember to add in your space before you close it. And then we're going to add in our number, which is a string. And then just close that bracket. And that's it. You can check it. If it doesn't work, remember to go back and double check that the colors match, that the spelling is there. I'm always a culprit of typing too fast and missing something, or adding a capitalization or missing a semicolon. Okay, so double check your capitalization, the color, the spelling, and your indents. Okay, so make sure that it matches the instruction sheet there. You can check that last one or go back through the steps. Okay, so in order to play our game and to check it, we have to run it through the Python shell. So I'm going to go up to our top, and again, you can either press F5 or you can go to the top and press run module. If it's the first time you've done this, you're going to have to save it as a file name so that the computer knows where to look. So again, keep it in a nice simple spot so it's in our Python codes, and we're going to do number game. So now it's going to run in our shell, and it says, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 20. Let's try it again. Let's do 15 this time. It's too high. Let's go down to 10. Wow, I got it in 3 tries this time. Okay, so you'll notice here that I've got 3, and then there's no space there before tries. So let's go back and try and fix that. So we know that that comes out here when I guess it. So it looks like I've got a space before the number of guesses, but not after. So let's add one more space in there so that there's a space before it. Let's try it again. We have to save it, run it through here. We'll go 15, 10, 5, 7. Ooh, there we go. Good job. You guessed my number in 5 tries, and I've got that space there. This is exactly what I wanted. All right, so let's see if our error code works, or so if I don't get it in 6. 20, 1, 19, 2, 18, 3. Nope, you ran it out of attempts. I was thinking of the number 7. So I wasn't close, but that was the point. I wanted to see if I could get this too many attempts to try and guess my number. And there you go. So now you can test it out yourself. You can keep playing games. You can give it to a family member and have them try. But you've just created your code. So remember, if you're having troubles, you can always send us an email or a message on social media, and we will help you out. But the biggest thing is to go back and be diligent and really look at what the code is and how you spelt things, and then give it a try. So thanks for joining us and creating your very own number game in Python. I hope that you had fun, and if it was your first time using Python, that it wasn't too hard and that you can keep playing around with it, especially in the Python shell. There's some cool things that you can do there if you haven't watched part 1. And again, I'm Steph for Destination Exploration, part of our Technology Thursday posts with our At Home with DE. And until next time, I hope that you have a great time, and we'll see you then.